Yo, what's up, guys? So today we're going to be doing another performance test of the ROG Ally here. I thought it would be a good opportunity just to get a sense of the temperatures and how much, heat that the device is going to generate. And to do that, I'm going to be playing one of my favorite games, and that is in the Need for Speed franchise. That is Need for Speed Heat. So as you can see right now, we are sitting at around 37 degrees Celsius. This pretty much just booted the device up, just turned it on. This is going to be pretty much the base temperature of the device here while it's running pretty much at idle. I will say that I am outputting to an external monitor right here, so if that affects the heat in any way, not so sure, but it is outputting to a display. Just before we get into it, if you guys are going to ask about this sort of grip here, that is, I just want to show you that here. That is the Performance Grips by Control Freak. It's designed for an Xbox controller, but you can pretty much put it on here. And the only thing you have to worry about is on the back, you just cut out a section, just cut out a little section here for the back buttons, and you're pretty much good to go. It does add a nice grip and overall ergonomic improvement to the ROG Ally. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into Need for Speed Heat, test the performance as well as the heat generated. Okay, so the game just loaded up, and as you can see here, temperatures are increasing. We are getting up to around 95 degrees, so it's getting pretty toasty now. We just loaded up the game, and we are getting those temperatures up. Now let's see how it goes. I will say that I am in the turbo mode, so this is pretty much the most power you're going to get while this device is operating, unless you are plugged in to a 65-watt power adapter. Then of course you can go up to 30 watts. Now we're just gonna play this for a little bit, get into it, and see how the temperatures hold and how the performance, checks out. Okay, so we're in the game now, and the temperatures have pretty much sustained at around 90 degrees. So it's looking like we're going to be at around 90 to 95 degrees for the duration of this test. I will say we are playing at 1080p low settings on the turbo operating mode. We are getting around 60 to 65 FPS right now, and it does look pretty good. Not sure how it comes off over camera, but it does look actually pretty decent. I will say I do almost prefer these graphics to the newest Need for Speed Unbound. A lot of people didn't really like Unbound for like the effects, like the smoke effects and the graffiti type effects. I did actually like that because it was different, but I do like the graphics and sort of the textures of Need for Speed Heat a little bit better than the textures of Need for Speed Unbound. Just like on the cars and I guess the world overall, I do prefer the textures on Need for Speed Heat. But so we're just gonna drive around here, maybe get into a race or two, and just see how the performance and the temperature holds up. This is Need for Speed Heat, and I will say the device is pretty toasty right now. We're hovering around 90 to 95 degrees, which is, I will say that the Z1 Extreme in the ROG Ally does like to run pretty hot unless you set a custom fan curve. I did not set a custom fan curve for this test, but that is something that I would recommend you do if you are playing in turbo mode for a sustained period. And also if you're playing off an SD card, a lot of people had issues with the SD card sort of just dying. I will say my SD card has not died, but I don't play PC games off the SD card. I only play like emulated games off of the SD card, so your mileage may vary. I don't think we're going to see a big difference in temperatures here, just because we are hovering around 90 to 95 degrees. I will say the performance is pretty good. 1080p low settings, we're getting around 55 to even 65 FPS in some cases, and it is very playable. I'm not noticing any frame drops. I will say I am playing on an external monitor that is connected over USB-C. I'm not sure if that takes away from performance. It usually doesn't. I've tested with and without the external monitor, and you get around 55 to 60 FPS at 1080p, no settings. So it doesn't seem like outputting to an external monitor has a noticeable impact on the actual performance, which is good to see, because right now I am looking at the monitor to play the game. I'm not looking at the built-in screen. Like I said, because it's hard to play looking at the screen because the screen is facing straight up into the camera, and my eyes are of course at an angle because I can't be in the same position as the camera and play at the same time. But this setup does work just for you know, my ability to play the game properly. Anyway, let's get into a race here just so we can see how it performs in an actual race. Where's the closest race to me? Let's go to this race here. All right, so we're getting into a race here. Gonna see how performance holds up. I will say the temperatures have gone down to around 75 degrees right now. So I'm not sure if that's gonna sustain, but I will say that the frame rate has also gone down to around 46. I guess when I started the race, the frame rate went down, but now the frame rate is going back up to around 55 FPS. So I'm not sure. I guess when you load into a race, you got a frame drop, and then you sort of, as the race starts, you sort of gain that performance back. Not sure, but I just had to note that there was a frame drop. The great thing about the variable refresh rate on the ROG Ally is that you don't really notice frame drops, because the screen does a good job at pretty much handling frame drops where you don't really notice a great dip in overall smoothness of gameplay. That's something I do like about the ROG Ally. I will say my temperatures have gone down by around 15 to 17 degrees. I'm at 76 degrees right now. So that is good to see. I'm sorry if I just hit in that car. I was watching the temperatures. But the temperature has gone down significantly. I'm not sure. I guess the fan curve is taking those fans up to bring the temperatures down. I'm not sure what the threshold is. I have to check the standard profile for the fans. But I will say it is rather low. When you go to set up a custom fan curve, it does show you the built-in fan curves, and they are pretty low. So that's why it's always good to make a custom fan curve just to preserve the life of your device. But I will say those fans are kicking on, and temperatures are reflecting that increase of fan power. So we're at around 76 degrees. That's where I would want this device to be, sitting around 70 to 80 degrees. I feel like that's a much better operating temperature. But this Z1 Extreme, it likes to run hot. Also, I will say the ROG Ally fan curve is probably not the best. I feel like they want it to run quiet for whatever reason, but there's no reason for it to run that quiet when it has such loud speakers. So I guess you could just turn the speakers up if the fan noise bothers you. The fan noise never bothered me because I understand that if the device is running hot, it's going to need those fans. The fan never really offended me. because I just think of it as if, you know, if I was doing any sort of strenuous activity, I would also be breathing heavy. So I just look at the device as, if it's working hard, it's gonna need to breathe heavy. I can't really expect it to be silent while it's, you know, doing such hard work. I will say our temperatures are holding at around 75 degrees. Frame rate is holding around 55 to 60 FPS. And it's an overall enjoyable experience. Even though it's not a solid lock 60, you could try to go for a lock 60, but you know, 55 to 65 FPS with the variable refresh rate display, you're not really gonna notice any dips. I'm not noticing any drops, so it's fine by me. I wouldn't lower the settings. I wouldn't go to 720p. I wouldn't try to work any harder to get, you know, a lock 60, because I don't notice any frame drops. The only time I would try to adjust the settings is if the frame drops were noticeable and it was hurting the gameplay experience. But in this case, the gameplay is not hindered in any way, and 55 to 65 FPS is a good place to be. So I guess the overall takeaway from this little test here is that the standard fan profiles are not the best in keeping the device cool. It does allow the device to heat up, and then the fans kick on after a while to bring the temperature down. But I will say that once the fans do kick on, the temperature will stay down below 80. So it hasn't gone above 80 ever since the fans kicked on and the temperatures dropped below 80. It has not gone above 80. So right now it's 76 degrees and it hasn't gone back up. So that is good to see, and that is just indication of what you can expect from the, I guess, the cooling system of the ROG Ally. I will say, if you're gonna be running this for an extended period of time, you might want to plug it in. Sorry for that, I was looking at the temperature. I will say that if you're gonna be running any custom, you know, TDP, you probably want to adjust the fan curves. Just turn them up so you can avoid running at 95 to begin with. And yeah, that's just me. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. This was just a sort of performance test of, you know, ROG Ally and the cooling and the heat. I will say that it's doing pretty good. Performance is great, and as you can see here, our temperatures are holding at 76 degrees. So with that, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna play some more Need for Speed Heat, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.